Hi, I'm Tim, welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're discussing the proper usage and care of your Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch Coaxial Master Chronometer Moonphase Chronograph. This is an automatic winding timepiece, nevertheless you can manually wind it. Take the crown in its first position, flush the case, and turn it 30 to 40 turns to start the watch. Now the watch can automatically wind itself. At this point you can set the moon phase, the date, operate the chrono, set the time, and the watch will continue to wind itself via the kinetic energy of your wrist. But if you wish to fully wind the watch up to its maximum rated power reserve of 60 hours, simply continue turning. To fully energize the watch will require 80 to 100 turns, but you can listen for the audible click or tick of the bridle style mainspring. The watch automatically slips that bridle mainspring to relieve excess strain or tension, so you can't accidentally overwind the watch. Listen for that click or tick as your audible sign that the watch is fully wound. The timepiece does feature some subsidiary setting modes that allow you to set the moon phase, the date, as well as the time of day. Let's start with the most basic, which is the setting of the time itself. Find an online reference, such as an atomic clock, set your time zone that you know to be accurate. Follow the constant seconds at 9 o'clock because that is your seconds for the time at center. And then pull the crown out 2 steps. This is what's known as stop seconds. 31, because it's a coaxial indicator of the date as well as constant seconds, is our 60 or 0. Now what I want to do is I want to set the time to the correct and current hour, but I want to set to the next nearest minute. So let's say I want to clear the mono counter at 3 o'clock. I'm going to set my watch. It's currently 7:09. I'm going to set my watch to 7:10. So the reference timer is at most 60 seconds behind me. I'm going to wait until that reference catches up so that the same minute, hour, and second is displayed on the atomic clock, and the second this watch and the displayed time coincide, push that crown all the way back in. Now you've synchronized to a reference time. You also note that the chronograph will stop during that precise setting of the time. The timepiece features 2 quick set functions, so if I pull the crown to an intermediate position between flush winding and all the way out stop seconds, I have the ability to quick set 2 functions. One is the moon phase and one is the radial date. So you'll note when I turn the crown in a counterclockwise direction, I step the date in 1-day increments. And when I turn it in the opposite direction, clockwise, I step the moon phase. Let's talk about setting a moon phase. In general, what you'll want to do is look up the current age of the moon, then set the watch to a new moon. So get rid of the moon, set it to a new moon, and then add the age of the moon. So if the age of the moon is 11 days, from the new moon, you're going to turn 11 individual increments, and you can see how there are stepped increments. So you start with the new moon and then you turn the correct number of days corresponding to the age of the moon. Alright, so those are the fine setting functions of the moon phase and the date, but you're also going to want to keep in mind that you don't want to use them 24 hours a day. There is a period from approximately 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. when the watch is engaged in the automatic turnover of its moon phase and date. You don't want to use those quick sets during that period. That's the automatic turnover. Attempting to use the quick set during that period can damage the watch, so always take care not to use the quick set for the moon and the date between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. Always push the crown back in when you're done using it to preserve the water resistance of the watch as well as to avoid shearing or impact damage. Now, the timepiece does feature a chronograph that has a tri-register, so seconds at center and a mono counter at 3 o'clock with coaxial hours and minutes. I'm going to reset it. Let's talk about using the chronograph. There is a sequence to be followed. You start and you stop, and then you reset. You only reset a stopped chronograph, so always stop before you reset. Attempting to reset a running chronograph can damage the movement significantly. You'll note there's a tachometer bezel. The tachometer is used to gauge the speed of an object, generally a very fast object, as it's calibrated from 500 to 60 units. Let's say you are looking at a very fast race car. There are 3 factors. There's time, there's the tachometer calibration, there's the distance, and that will yield an additional factor, which is the speed. So let's start the chronograph as the race car begins a standing kilometer, and when the race car completes that standing kilometer, I am going to stop the chronograph. Now let's say that very fast race car, maybe a thrust SSC jet car, crosses the kilometer, and you can see it did so in approximately 7 seconds. Well, adjacent to 7 seconds is 500 kilometers per hour is the speed of that car. Reset. Now let's talk about the care of your watch. A couple of handling restrictions. You're going to want to keep in mind water. Although this watch is water resistant to 100 meters, which is sufficient for swimming, leather, as featured on the strap, is a natural porous material that is never water resistant. So always ensure that the watch is on a water resistant band such as textile or rubber before immersion or water exposure. It's also important to remember that you can help avoid accidental drowning. Do not wind, pull, or replace the crown. Do not use the chronograph pushers while the watch is submerged, but also while there is water on the case. So if the watch is wet, disuse all functions until the watch is dry, as attempting to use these controls can bypass the case seals and introduce water to the interior with catastrophic consequences. We wish to avoid that, so always remember you can help avoid accidental drowning by disusing these controls while your watch is wet. It's important to remember that water resistance is not a static feature of your watch. Unlike mechanical specification, it does ebb with time and change as seals age and lubricants degrade. Therefore, Omega advises, on a yearly basis, taking the watch to an authorized service center for a dry water test to ensure that the factory-rated hermeticity is maintained. It's also important to note that this is a good time to have the total condition of your watch, cosmetic, chronometric precision, as well as water-resistant hermeticity checked by your authorized service center, just in case a full service might be needed. It's also important to remember that the timepiece should be shielded from high impact and concussion. Magnetism is no longer the threat it was. Thanks to Omega's Si-14 silicon hairspring technology, the watch is effectively amagnetic. Shock, however, remains an age-old hazard to a fine mechanical watch, and though this timepiece does meet the Swiss and ISO standards for a internationally acknowledged shock-resistant watch, nevertheless there are some extremes that should be avoided, such as concussive sports, batting, tennis, golf, firearms marksmanship, or the riding of ATVs and mountain bikes. Disuse the watch during these activities. Also, protect the crystal as well as the Ceragold ceramic bezel from hard, sharp blows. Although both surfaces are extremely scratch resistant and will continue to look new indefinitely under most circumstances, hard blows against unyielding surfaces can crack or fracture these hard materials. So always ensure that the watch is kept a safe distance from hard and sharp surfaces that might create a shatter risk for the sapphire and ceramic surfaces of your watch. Ultimately, every 4 to 5 years per Omega, a fine mechanical timepiece will need a comprehensive mechanical overhaul. Have your watch checked at an authorized service center every year during your water test, because some usage and conditions can result in shorter maintenance intervals, but service only with those authorized service centers or the factory itself, as these agencies solely have the trained personnel, original Omega replacement parts, and specialized tools to protect the value of your watch as both instrument and as investment. Moreover, only these agencies can back all labor and parts invested with an Omega factory service warranty. Ultimately, visit our website at govbergwatches.com and call, text, or email our experts who will be happy to walk you through every phase of the usage and care of this or any fine Omega watch.